What is good, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's going on with the Tesla, SPY, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to break down when Jerome Powell is giving his speech for today, how this may affect the markets, what you should be watching for as we progress. But before I break anything down, all this information, before I get into any more details, let me just mention a couple of things. I am personally not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out the Moomoo link, which is down below and in the description. If you sign up for Moomoo, the link down below, and deposit $100 into the account, you are guaranteed up to 5 free stocks. This offer ends in just about 6 days from now, so check it out before they run out. Anyways, let's break down what's going on with the markets. And by the way, guys, if you guys hear me whispering, just know that I'm recording this at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I'm just trying my best not to wake up any loved ones. I'm also trying to not wake up any pets across the street or even like next to me, which could just wake up an entire neighborhood. So I'm just trying my best, but please bear with me during these pre-market videos. Sometimes what's done has to be done. So what's going on with the market is we're starting to see SPY pump. Tesla's a little bit red right now during the pre-market. Apple's kind of flat. QQQ is a little green, and Nvda is continuing to rip. But I warned you guys about this yesterday that the market is likely still in a topping process. I told you that the upside is going to be limited. We could push a few more points up on SPY, but it's going to be limited in my opinion. And I say that because we now have a triple bearish divergence on the chart. The chart is suggesting that the upside is going to be limited. We could pump a little bit more, but there might be a dump coming very, very soon. Okay, could take a few more days, could happen as soon as today. It all depends on Jerome Powell, who's giving another speech. So, what's happening with today's data? We had initial jobless claims coming in as expected. This was good for the markets, meeting the consensus in the forecast. Everything else was as expected, quite decent. But moving forward, the mortgage rate data is going to be coming out around noon. We'll be watching to see how that affects the markets. And then at 2 o'clock p.m., we have Jerome Powell giving a speech. So we're going to be listening to what Jerome Powell ends up saying. Whatever he says could shake the markets. And he's going to be talking about the economy, monetary policy, and etc. In my opinion, Powell could pump the markets a bit higher, but you want to be very careful because even if that's the case, we're going to likely dump anyways. It could just be a pump and dump, or the market could just dump a little bit later. We're going to be watching it very carefully. For earnings, we had Li Auto and just a couple of others. We had other pieces of news as well, but nothing too big. We just had Disney's earnings, and we're going to be watching to see how this continues. The market's on the longest winning streak in 2 years, as we're continuing to see the S&P 500 Nasdaq Composite rip to the upside. Disney's fourth quarter earnings topped expectations when it released its results after market close on Wednesday. Revenue was a bit short, but they are planning on expanding the cost-cutting measures by an additional $2 billion. That's some good news for them. On top of this, the Hollywood actors' strike is over as of early Thursday morning, and they have a preliminary labor agreement in place that would bring the industry back to life, apparently. So we're going to be watching this very, very carefully. That's some good news for now. ARM, which went public in September, gave its first earnings, and it actually beat expectations, which is good news for them. We'll be watching to see guidance. It was a little bit short, but it is what it is. We'll see how it goes. All right, guys, so that's it for now when it comes to news currently affecting the markets. But the question is what's happening moving forward. Honestly, guys, it depends on Jerome Powell's speech. SPY and the S&P 500 is still looking bullish. We look bullish approaching today. We're still pushing. We're going to be watching if this resistance can stop us in the 438s. If we break this, expect 440. 440 is going to be coming next. If that breaks, we have this new trend line of resistance right here. So you can see this white line I drew out. That's going to be around 441. So between 440 and 441 is where I think this thing goes max. And I'm going to be anticipating a rejection somewhere up there if we do keep going. But like I said before, guys, I think the upside is very limited. We are looking a bit more bullish, so watch for resistance in the 438s, and let's see if we reject. If we reject very soon, we also have this gap down here at 436.7. There's also another gap all the way down at 430. I think we're going to fill the 430 gap soon, but we could pop a bit more thanks to Powell before we fill the gap, so you just want to be very careful. Same thing on the QQQ. We're going to be watching our supports around this 372 area. If we break that, watch 371, 370.5, and 369 to 368. For resistance, watch 375, and then we have 377 above that. My gut is telling me that with this triple bearish divergence, we might pop a little bit more. We could get very close to 375, maybe a little higher, and then we're going to likely see a rug pull, or it could just drop from here. I believe that that's what's on the table with Jerome Powell's speech, so we're going to be watching to see how Powell affects us. But I think upside is limited. For Nvidia, we were talking about this thing pushing towards this resistance. We called out these levels. We were talking about 476 yesterday. We're going to be watching that resistance on Nvidia as this thing is pumping nicely, but watch the gap below. We have a lot of gaps below, so just be very careful. We have some tight resistance between 476 to 480, and we're going to be watching how this stops Nvidia. Nvidia could pump a little bit more and then reject, or it could reject from here. If it does so, watch support at 471. If we lose that, I expect it's going to come down to 468 again and potentially fill the gap down to 465. So a pop and drop is possible, or a drop from here. We're going to be watching this very carefully. For Apple stock, watch resistance around this 182.5 area. We're just barely testing that. Then we have 183.5 above that and 184 as resistance. And above 184, watch 185. For support, watch 182. If we lose this, watch support at 181.5. If we lose this, there's 181 and then 180. In my opinion, there's a head and shoulders like pattern developing on Aapl. If it pops a bit more thanks to Powell watch resistance, I think upside is going to be very limited. I think that's going to fill these imbalances down here and make its way back down to 178 in the future. But it might pop a little bit first before it comes down. So look for a little pop towards 183 possibly. Maybe it goes all the way up to 185 before it drops. It could pop a little bit more before it drops or just drop from here. There's likely going to be some downside very soon. Tesla's looking relatively weak this morning. We're going to be watching to see how this performs, continuing to go back and forth and back and forth. It might pop again towards 225, but watch this resistance up here. If it pops, watch it just maintain the supply and demand range. It's been going back and forth between 225. It's gone a little higher, but it's very close to that. And then to 215, that's where our support is. If it loses 214, you turn very bearish. If it keeps pumping, you could turn a little bit more bullish. In my opinion, I think it might pop a little bit in the morning and come back down. And I think that eventually Tesla's going to retest 216.8 and just trade sideways. And then we'll be watching to see how Jerome Powell affects it. He might cause a pump and dump, so just be very careful. Be careful with Powell's speech coming out later on. All right, guys, so that's it for now. The market could pump a little bit more, but we're going to be watching to see what Jerome Powell says and how he affects the markets later on. All right, guys, so that's it for this one. Thank you all so much for listening. Have an absolutely stupendous rest of the day and get ready for Jerome Powell's speech at 2 o'clock p.m. Thank you and peace out.